Greetings, everyone. I'm Bryon Smith, and welcome to Enlightened, Empowered, Evolved. Hope everybody's doing well. Wait, I have faith and believe that everybody's doing well and that everything is unfolding perfectly. I'm excited today, again, because Dan Mathews is back. And for those of you that don't know who Dan Mathews is, I'm going to tell you something about him, a little something. His resume far exceeds what I'm about to read, but just to give you some context. Dan Mathews is an expert public speaker on topics of natural and universal laws, thoughts and goals setting. In addition, he is a professional copywriter with expertise in web content and articles, as well as marketing through social media, email, and direct mail. Dan holds BA degrees in physics and English and earned a master's degree in marine biology. His research work includes physics, polymer, chemistry, and ocean ecology. One of Dan's 3 published books, Self-Help Jesus, was a #1 international bestseller on Amazon. And like I said, the list goes on. Welcome, Dan Mathews. Glad to have you here. Round of applause, everybody, for this brilliant man. If you saw the first one, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't, you need to go see it. You're missing out. I'm telling you right now. How are you, sir?
Very well. I'm excellent, Lute. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Now, I can feel it from 1,000 miles away.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I'm excited. I mean, whenever I connect, I don't downplay it. I'm excited to have everyone, but there's just certain individuals that have a presence about themselves. And then you feel like you're watching a new and exciting movie. You don't know what's going to happen or what you're going to learn. And you, sir, inspire that type of feeling within me. And it is what it is. I'm excited to have you.
Because when we get started, I don't know where I'm going to go in terms of talking. So I'm not sure what I'm going to say. So anything can come out.
You know what? And that's totally fine with me. That's what the type of platform that I have. I just want you to talk about anything you like. Like before the segment, you mentioned to me about talking about laws, universal laws and different universal laws. And I would like for you to elaborate a bit more on that.
That sounds good. And the reason we talked about that, for those of you that are listening in, was that some people believe that they've seen or heard things about the law of attraction, and they've gone, well, I want a new yacht, and the yacht doesn't show up, and they think, right, well, what's going on? They said all you got to do is think about it, and it happens. And it happens by law, but it's simple, but it's not easy. Wallace Wattles back in 1910 said there's a certain way. You do things in a certain way. There's a certain method, and the method works. The method is true. The method is following the universal laws that are the same as the universal laws in physics. Nobody doubts the law of gravity.
Right.
You may not understand the math behind it. You may not understand how it works, and to tell you the truth, it's generally unknown anyway.
Right.
But nobody in their right mind is going to step off of a building.
Right.
Because
what's going to happen.
You know it. Even if you don't believe in the law of gravity, right, if you think that it's just a bunch of mathematics and there's really nothing there, you're not fool enough to step off the roof of a building.
Exactly.
Because
you know where you'll end up.
Yeah. You know exactly what's going to happen, because it's happened since from the time you were a little kid and you were first trying to walk, a little baby trying to walk. knows about the law of gravity even before they can talk. And
Right.
they'll be careful about going places where there's a chance they might fall. So how do these laws fit in, the spiritual laws fit in with the natural laws, the laws of physics? There are two things. And we talk about the law of attraction
Right.
in the spiritual world, about manifesting something, and we talk about the laws that deal with attraction and repulsion in physics.
Yes.
And the truth of the matter is, it's the same law, but we have different levels of awareness. We have different levels of existence. We have our bodies, and our bodies are incredibly complicated biochemical electrical machines.
Right. You proved the electrical part last time we
And we
spoke.
know and we know that we can raise our level of energy. I can raise my level of energy. The light bulb's still back in the back here, but
Right.
I'm not going to do that today. But but we know that there are physical laws that are easily described. Not easily described. It took basically a couple hundred years to come up with the laws of physics. Some of the mathematics is difficult, but the concepts are relatively simple. And for gravity, if you have two large objects, even a small object and a large object, they're attracted to each other by this so-called law of gravity.
Wow. Is
Well,
that
how does that happen? We have our physical body, and our physical body has what we call five senses. We can hear, see, smell, taste,
taste?
and touch.
Touch. Right.
And those are the things that keep signals coming in from the outside. We don't have to think about the law of gravity. We don't have to. Now you're going to get aware of it here right now, because the law of gravity is working on you right now, because you can feel the pressure of your body sitting in a chair, or
Right.
the pressure of your body through your feet onto a floor, onto the ground. The law of gravity is always there, but we check it. We don't process that information in our conscious mind.
Because it's happening continuously.
Your autonomic nervous system, your subconscious mind, is very aware of that all the time. That's why you're always in your peripheral vision. You watch where you're walking so you don't trip on a shoe or on a stair. Your body's watching out for your safety all the time. And if it stopped watching out for your safety, if all of a sudden you didn't pay attention to anything in your with your sense of sight, you would run into a wall fairly quickly.
Right.
You have to pay attention. Your body takes care of that without you thinking about it. You don't have to think, oh, I'm getting close to that wall, I better stop. Your body senses that and takes care of it. There are things we cannot sense. Things like microwaves. Everybody has a microwave in their house. Your body does not have the sensing equipment to sense microwaves. We can sense infrared. If you stand next to a fire, you feel the warmth of the fire, you feel the heat from the fire. That's infrared radiation. It's the same kind of radiation that comes off a microwave generator, but it's not as high energy. The microwave generator, your body has no way of sensing it. Microwaves, X-rays, radio waves, which are lower energy than heat waves, infrared. But
Cell phone.
cell phones, radio waves, they
Oh yeah, radio
we
waves. Yeah.
are
Yes.
surrounded, completely surrounded, and not just surrounded, but our bodies are being penetrated all the time. Every second of your life, you're being penetrated by some kind of rays, electromagnetic radiation, that you have no way of sensing. And
Wow.
that's why they've come up with equipment to sense X-rays. So when you go to the dental office, you don't get too many X-rays,
Right.
because those cause chemical changes in your cells and make it so they don't reproduce properly. And when they don't reproduce properly, you have some issues related to things like cancer because of chemical changes, biological changes in the cells that make it so they don't reproduce like they're supposed to.
Is that any connection or correlation with like uh, theories that I've heard about houses being close to electrical towers and things of that?
Yeah, electrical towers will do the same thing. And some things, a person with a pacemaker, it would be very dangerous for a person with a pacemaker in their heart to go under high tension power lines because that particular frequency of 60 cycles per second can cause the pacemaker to malfunction.
Wow. And
And
they probably tell them that too. Don't get too
oh,
close to a
yeah,
power line.
yeah, you, absolutely. And in the same way, a powerful magnet should never be close to a credit card because
Yes.
the little strip on the back of the credit card is a magnetic strip. And if you get it close to a magnet, all the information is jumbled. The credit card won't work anymore. You don't use credit cards, or you have protection with around strong magnetic fields, and there's no way for you to sense a magnetic field. I'll show you something. This is going to be my only demonstration. You see this little white, this is just some piping, some plastic piping, but it's not plastic piping that's on here. These are very powerful magnets. They're not being held by anything except the magnetic field of the magnet below them. And if I move one magnet, the other magnet moves too. There's
Now,
no,
how come they're not sticking to each other?
well, because the magnetic field is actually along the opposite fields are along the edges, the flat edges of the magnet. And so
Okay.
the South Pole is down here on this one, and this one is a South Pole also. So they push against each other.
Oh, okay.
And the North is here and the North is here. But the whole thing is you can demonstrate that if you get two things together, close enough together, their fields, and you're always giving off fields, their fields will interact. And the
Right.
motion of one causes motion in the other.
Wow. And you can't even see that field.
And there's nothing there. There's nothing there at all that you can see. But it's like there's a spring, but there isn't a spring. All there
But
is,
you can kind of feel it as you push. You can feel the tension.
I would not be able to push these two together. I can get close, but the closer you get, the stronger it gets. And I've tried it. I physically do not have enough strength to push these together. You would have to have a hydraulic press to push these magnets together, because
Wow.
the closer they get, the stronger the field gets. And if you cut the distance in half, the magnetic field is 4 times stronger. If you tried to get it down to 1/10, it would be 10 times stronger. And it's pretty strong as it is. If I pull it up here, it doesn't have a lot of effect because it gets weaker as it goes up. But if I drop it, it only gets so close and then it stops.
Wow. Now, what is the cause of that magnetic field? How is that created?
There's there are certain kinds of atoms, and it's related to a few different metals. Mostly iron is the most common one, but there are some other ones called rare earth metals that are used to make powerful magnets like this one. And the magnetic field is caused by the electrons. You remember from your class in science, basic class in science, you have a neutron in the middle and electrons orbit around them.
Yes.
And those electrons have what's called a spin. They're like a little planet that's spinning like this, but it's also going around. And when the spins are lined up, it causes a magnetic field to form.
Right. Wow.
Now, that's interesting in itself, because if we talk about atoms, the electron is no longer called a particle. We talk about it as a particle because we can predict what'll happen, kind of predict what'll happen to an electron. But right now, an electron is just called a point charge. And it's
Point
not
charge.
a point charge, because and a point means it takes up zero volume. It's not like a rock or a grain of sand. It's like if you took a rock and you compressed it down to the size of a grain of sand and kept making it smaller and smaller until it disappeared. It still has properties of an electric field, the electron does, but it doesn't have mass. It has, it doesn't take up any space. It's a zero volume particle.
So it's there, you just can't see it.
It's not there. It's not there.
Oh, it's not there.
The energy is there. All
The
it
energy.
all
Okay.
it is a point of energy. And the way I like to describe it is if you have a piece of thin cloth, like a piece of silk, and if you took that piece of cloth and just twisted a little spot in your between your finger and thumb and made it a wrinkle,
Right.
the piece of cloth is the electric field that spreads out through the whole universe, and the electron is the wrinkle in that field. It's like that's the closest in terms of visualizing it. That's the closest you're going to get to visualizing what an electron actually is. Well, it turns out that even the nucleus, this massive nucleus, is also just energy.
Wow. Okay.
So the things that we think of, like this table that my computer's sitting on, we think of as a solid. But
Yes.
if you're when you were a kid, you probably had a bicycle, right? Maybe you still have one.
Yes.
And did
Yeah.
you ever work on it in the summer day? You turn it upside down to grease the hub,
Grease the chain and look at this. Yeah.
and you turn
Crank
the
and
pedals, and as you
yeah.
crank the pedals, the wheel goes faster and faster and faster.
Right.
Have you ever tried to stick your finger in between those spokes when it's going fast?
I'm sure I have.
Well, if you have, you probably injured yourself.
Right.
But you can't. You can get it going so fast that you can't see the spokes.
Yes.
And when it's sitting still out by the tire, there's way more air than there is spokes. But
Right.
when it's going fast, you wouldn't try to stick your finger between there, because it doesn't matter how quick you are, you're gonna hit some spokes, and the spokes are
Right.
gonna hit you, and you can get injured doing that.
Right.
It's kind of the same way with an atom. There's energy there that's moving at very high speeds, but and it interacts like the magnetic fields in those rings, but in a solid, it forms what's called a solid lattice. It forms a lattice, and there's space between the atoms. Actually, it's all space, but the lattice of the energy produces a barrier that you can't put your finger through a table. You can't
No,
put your finger through a wall or a window
because
unless
it's moving so fast.
the window. It's moving so fast, and it's not, and your fingers, I can't put my hand even through my hand, even though it's the same substance.
Right.
Causes a barrier. And we have many things in our everyday life that we have no way of knowing about, because we don't have any sensing material. Our eyes can see what's called visible light.
Right.
But the spectrum of what they call visible light that makes up the rainbow, red, yellow, orange, blue, violet, whatever the color sequence is, for a rainbow is a very, very narrow sliver of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. And things like radio waves, like I said, microwaves, X-rays, are all part of that electromagnetic spectrum. They all carry information. Everything
Right.
in the universe vibrates, everything vibrates, everything sends out electromagnetic radiation, and it goes everywhere in the universe.
Wow. Everything.
Everything. And when it comes down to, well, information, how is information transferred? Well, part of information transfer actually has to do with physical things. Like when I speak, my vocal cords vibrate, my mouth
Yes.
changes shape, sound comes out, and sound travels at about 700 miles an hour, and it hits the microphone and is changed into an electrical impulse.
Right.
And that electrical impulse travels into the computer, then it's changed into radio frequency waves that's transferred through the air to your modem, and through the modem it's transferred again to the cell tower, and from the cell tower it's radiated across the country. You're in San Diego? You're in LA?
No, outside of San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you're closer than I thought. You're only 8 hours away from me.
Yes. You
So
go down to get to you. I would go down Highway 505 or something
go
like
over the
that.
Golden Gate and go straight up north on Highway 101, and you'll come right to my house in about 9 hours.
About 9 hours. Golden Gate. Oh, I love the Golden Gate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful bridge.
That would be good. But from 500 or so miles away, that signal is it's making changes. That's one of the things about the universe, is it's entirely 100% energy. There's nothing but energy.
Wow.
And that energy is always moving or changing form, and it always moves in vibrations, like water waves, like the wind blowing across a lake. It produces waves, but they're invisible to our bodies,
In our
except
eyes, yes.
except for light and a few other things. We can sense pressure. If you've ever been in a parade or watched a parade and the drummer goes by with a big bass drum, you can feel that.
You can feel
Or
that, yes.
there are boom boxes in cars that it does the same thing. Guy comes up next to you at a stoplight, you can feel it from his car through the air to your car. Your car starts to vibrate too, if he's got a big bass system in there.
Right.
Pressure waves. Those pressure waves require air or water or some kind of what they call a medium to travel through, but they carry information. And you can be quite a ways away from sound waves and get distinct ideas transferred by the pressure waves as they hit your ears, and that sound is transferred into language.
Wow.
It's translated, not transferred, translated into language. So you have some ways of sensing the world around you, but there are more than 99% of the information that's out in the universe or in the world around us in the everyday world that you have no way of sensing. The information is still there. Your body can't sense radio waves, but if you get a cell phone, you can get a cell phone signal, because a cell phone is made to sense radio waves and change it into sound.
Right. And it's even like going through you.
Yeah,
You don't even know
absolutely.
it.
Going through your body, and most of it does no harm. But things like x-rays that also go through your body can be harmful because they're very high energy.
Right.
So where are we going with that? There are some natural laws that there are natural forces that we can sense with our bodies. There are some forces that we cannot sense with our bodies. But if you've ever been in a room with several people on some kind of social occasion, a party or something like that, somebody walks into the room and they are really happy.
Right.
They've got a radiant personality. They talk about it being a radiant personality.
Right.
And
Vibrant.
it seems like the room lights up.
Yes.
People that are successful performers, or people that talk on stage, musicians and so forth, actors, they have a radiant personality, and they give off energy that you can feel, not with your body, but you can feel it in your heart. You can feel it in your gut, or you can feel it in your mind. I put my mind up here. Your mind isn't concentrated around your head. Your head has your brain in it, and that's basically a receiving and transmitting station.
Yes.
It has thinking capabilities, but there are other thinking centers in your body.
Right.
I was sitting next to a neurologist on a plane flight, and started chatting with him. I didn't know he was a neurologist. And I said, "What do you do?" "I'm a neurologist." And I said, "Awesome. Tell me about the three minds." And I thought, oh, this guy's going to just laugh. He didn't. He said, "Well, there's actually more than three." And he said, "Tell me more." And he said, "Well, we have our brain."
Right.
He said, but any place where there's a concentration of bundles of nerves, it's called a neuroplexus. Any place where there's a neuroplexus, there's thinking capability.
I
And
didn't know that.
the next highest concentration of nerves is in your heart, because your
Wow.
autonomic nervous system is, you don't ever think about your heart. You can't even, if you sit right now, you can't feel your heart beating.
No.
You, if you put your finger on your neck, on your carotid artery, you can feel the pulsing of blood through that carotid artery, but that's not really your heart. Your heart's down here. And if you ever put your ear against somebody's chest, you can hear their heart beating, but you can't feel it. It's so part of
Yeah.
you. You're
Yeah.
you're totally unaware of it all the time. The only time that I notice that I can feel my heart beating is if I run or really do an aerobic workout. I can feel it. I can hear it pounding in my eardrums. I can feel it. I can feel my body pulsing with that boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
because my heart is working hard. But normally I'm totally unaware of it. And I know I'm unaware of it. I try to think about it and I can't do it,
Right.
because it's part of your autonomic nervous system. It also is a neuroplexus. And when they say you feel something in your heart, emotion, emotion is a big one for your heart, whether it's fear or love. When you feel love, you feel it in your heart.
Yes.
And you
Exactly.
feel it in your heart because it's a thinking center.
Wow.
The
I
other
never
the
thought
other
of it.
one is tissue called mesentery that surrounds all of your intestines. There's a very thin membrane that surrounds all of your intestines, holds everything in place, very fragile, easily torn. Many, many nerves, because there are lots of signals that are having to be processed all the time, autonomic signals that tell your intestines to secrete digestive fluids, secrete acids, to work on. There are all kinds of moving muscles that have to contract to move things through your intestines. All that's done without you thinking about it.
Wow.
And because there's a neuroplexus there, your third thinking center is your gut. And when you feel it in your gut, it's more than just a saying.
Yes,
Your
we've all heard that.
your gut
Gut
has,
feeling.
yeah, your gut has the ability to process thoughts and to
Oh,
process emotions. If you're having you're stressed, you've got a gig coming up and you're not ready for it. You've got to break down an equipment, whatever it happens to be. You start getting a stomach ache.
right. Or just queasy feeling.
It's because your gut is reacting to your emotion of stress.
Right.
That thinking center is trying to do its normal job, but because you're overpowering it with stress thoughts, it's not able to do its job, and it's kind of rebelling and causing some other problems about stomach aches, whatever it happens to be, that is a normal response to stress.
Yes.
It's a thinking center. And the
Yes.
other the other areas, as you started talking, he said your fingers, your hands and your fingers, high concentration of nerves. And if you've ever had a good massage, you know that massage therapist really
Yes.
can is the hands of the massage therapist are talking to your body. And I
Yes.
could never figure out how do they feel, where to put the pressure in. And they'll hit a spot and it goes, I put pressure on my shoulder and I can feel it up in my forehead,
Right.
because they know their body is talking to my body.
Wow.
And it's an amazing thing. So we have energy that we're not aware of. We have energy that we are aware of. The whole universe is energy. And so let's get on with what some of these laws are.
Yes.
There's,
And
there's a,
how that's what I was going to ask you next. But
so
see, you're doing such a fine job
well, that's kind
of
of a
how this ties into.
we're half an hour into it already.
No, I love,
So,
like I said, this is a teaching session. So I'm not going to say very much. I'm listening.
well, so tell me about one of the spiritual laws that you've been thinking about.
Okay.
Any of them.
Just any of them. law. Okay, we got law of attraction, law of uh, reaping and sowing. Right? Is there one that?
Reaping and sowing, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That's part of the law of cause and
Law of is there one of compensation?
compensation is one. Yeah,
Yes.
worker is worthy of his hire, right?
Yes. The labor is worthy of his hire. Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard Neville Goddard say that in one of his segments.
Oh
When
yeah.
a when a lady said, I think it's the one I sent you. The lady said, "Oh, I like to write, but I don't do it for money." And she goes, "Yeah, you may not write for money, but the labor is worthy of its hire."
That's right. That's
Yes.
right.
What you
That's right.
do is provide, basically he was saying you're providing a service to people. So that's worth compensation.
Yeah, you're trading value for value.
Right.
and
So,
and money, people think, they try to put all kinds of values on money. It's good, it's bad,
right,
avoid it, go for it, all those things. Money is just energy.
right.
Money's
And
just
what he also said that too. He said money is innocuous or something like that. He said there's no difference between this and another metal than the
it,
number and the rate of
it's
motion surrounded uh, by a central nucleus or something like that.
it's a medium of exchange.
Yes,
You trade value for value.
value.
and
Yes,
it used to be people would use something else. I'd come do some work for you, and you'd do some work for me, and you just traded work for work, and that got
right,
too complicated. So money came into the picture a long time ago.
right,
um, and the but they let's look at the law of attraction, which is really a subset of the law of vibration. We've just I talked a lot about vibration and how vibrations carry energy and so forth. And what
right.
happens, the highest form of energy that's been shown to exist, uh, is the energy of thought. Thought vibrates at a rate. There's a law in physics that says the energy of a wave has to do with its amplitude, how big the wave is, and its rate of vibration, which is its frequency. And as a sound person, you know all about frequencies.
So yes,
And
the hertz and
yeah,
yes.
generally higher frequencies means higher energy.
Okay,
You don't notice it very much in the sound range, because there's a big difference between 80 hertz, 80 cycles per second, and 800 cycles per second. One of them you can barely hear as a thump thump thump, and the other one is something in the musical tones that you would hear as a musical sound. But vibrations carry energy. The higher the frequency, the higher the vibration. And it's believed that thought energy, the wavelength of thought energy, the different distance between waves, is down on the order of a fundamental unit of length, which is very, very small. It would take thousands of these waves to go across one electron.
wow,
Super, super tiny waves, extremely high frequency. And the thing with thought energy, which was shown in an experiment in quantum physics called quantum entanglement. Did I talk about that last time?
yes. You talked a bit
A little
about
bit
that,
about
about
quantum
the effect
entanglement.
that it has on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that it's an information exchange even between electrons, where the spin on one will go one way and the other is to balance it, and there's information that's exchanged so they match up.
right.
And that quantum entanglement, that information travels faster than the speed of light. It travels instantaneously from one place to another.
They
So
probably can't even measure
something,
that speed,
well, they can measure the speed of light. That's only 186,000 miles per second.
but not the speed of thought.
No, the speed of thought. That's why as they separated them out, they took them far enough that they could measure the time it took to verify that information was traveling at the speed of light. But they found that no matter how far they separated them, it still took zero time. It was instantaneous.
Right.
So it had to be faster than the speed of light. And there are only two things that can be faster than the speed of light. Mass material objects can't go faster than the speed of light, but thought can, and things like phenomenon can.
Wow.
Like if you like if you swept, if you pointed a laser beam out into space and you swept it across the sky from one star to another, the path that that laser beam took, those stars are hundreds or thousands of light years apart, but you can take that beam and shine it from one star to the other in just a few seconds, just sweep
Right.
it through the sky. And the phenomenon of the beam moving can travel, there's no limit to how fast that can travel.
Yes.
The
Wow.
particles themselves coming out from the laser have a limited speed, but not the path of the beam as it sweeps across.
Wow.
So there are some things that can travel faster than the speed of light. And and thought energy is one of those things that once you have a thought, and this has to do with the law of attraction, once you have a thought, if you have a thought that is focused on something that you really really want, there's emotion tied to it, and that emotion gives the thought more energy than it would have if you were just casually thinking about something. So the emotion as it goes out starts a vibration. It sends out because it's vibration of a certain frequency. If you're thinking of something and you really really love that thing, you really want that, the vibration in your thought is the same as the vibrational frequency of the thing you're thinking of, and it goes out into the universe instantaneously and starts to what they call resonate. And we talked about resonance a little bit last time, I think. It causes energy that's of the same frequency to resonate also, and increases the amplitude of both of those waves because of something called superpositioning. It's just called a standing wave, and standing waves increase in amplitude but don't change in frequency, and that happens all the time in throughout the universe. When
Wow.
you're thinking of something, you're sending out vibrations of a certain frequency, carrying information that causes harmonic resonance in the electric field, electromagnetic field of the universe, and starts things happening. And
That attract that to you.
that starts that attraction process, and the thing that you're thinking about starts to take shape. And we talked about how when you set up your first studio, or you
Right.
set up your studio that you have now, it started as a thought, it
Yes.
went
Right.
out, but you had to take some steps. It wasn't just you thought of it and it suddenly just appeared like magic next door, or the walls were torn down and you had a studio where you used to have a bedroom. That it doesn't happen quite that way, because but it does happen with a thought that goes out and starts to materialize in your mind, starts to materialize, and you start getting ideas about, I could do this, I could do this, I could have my friend come over who has a hammer and a screwdriver and he can help me, and we can make this happen because of the thought energy that goes into it.
Yes. Which creates several bridges of incidences, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah,
Yes.
and things start to happen. You'll meet somebody who say, "Yeah, I know somebody who can help you with that," and all of a sudden things start to come together that seem like it's all coincidences, but it's happening because you, with your radiant energy walking into the room, have caused harmonic vibration in other parts of the world around you, and things start to come together.
Right. It
You've probably,
and I can resonate with that because even prior to this, I was talking to you about how I, thought about uh, even before everything. I mean, with my social media, before even social media, talking to people
was there a
around the
time
world.
before social media?
How?
Was there a time before social
Oh
media?
yes,
Oh,
yes.
what was it
That was a
like?
time when people actually were a little bit more. We had to get out there and cover a little bit more ground with our feet. You
That's
know,
right. That's right.
the time of the records and tapes and
Yeah.
8 tracks and things like that nature that I still have. By the way, I still have some records and some 8-track tape, and
What do
and I have
what
an
do you play
old
'em on?
phonograph.
Oh, you have a phonograph?
I have an old phonograph. Yes.
Wow, that's really
Yes, I
cool.
think it's from the 20s or something like that, 20s or
Oh,
30s. Yeah, I have
wow,
a picture of it on an album cover with my
that's
daughter
cool. That's cool.
Ariana. Yeah, a phonograph. Um, But yes, get back to what I was saying. And things are happening. You know, my mind is set on talking to amazing people, and here you are.
And it is, you know, it's amazing how things just start to happen.
Right.
And for, if there's anybody in the group who has any religious bent, and you've maybe read your New Testament a little bit about some of the stories that Jesus told, he told a story that had to do with the law of attraction. Exactly. Oh, that's what he was talking about, was the law of attraction. He ended the story saying, "Ask and you shall receive,
Right.
seek and you shall
You'll
find,
find.
knock and it
Knock
shall
and
be
the
open unto you." And then
yes.
and his disciples came to him and said, "We don't understand what you're saying." And he said back to him, this is in, I think, the 6th chapter of John. He said, "How is it that you do not understand?" He made it as simple as he could. And so he told the story again and said, there was a man who had a friend who was coming from a far country at night, and he came to his house and was hungry, and the man didn't have any food for him. But he knew that his neighbor next door had bread. And so he said, "I'll go to my neighbor next door and see if he'll give me some bread." But it was after dark, and that person was all, there were no lights back then, maybe oil candles, that was about it. And he went over and banged on the door, and his neighbor opened up the window and said, "I'm already in bed, get out of here." And he said, "No, I've got a friend that's here that's hungry. He's been traveling, he's hungry, let me have a loaf of bread." And he kept banging on the door until his neighbor came down, got him the bread, and gave it to him so he could go feed his friend.
Right.
And that's the whole story of the law of attraction. It started with a thought, went into a burning desire. He knew what he had to do. He took action and was persistent in his action with expectation. There was emotion of desire. He wanted to help his friend. He took action, persistent action, kept banging on the door, and finally got the bread.
Right.
And that's the whole story of the law of attraction, coming from Jesus himself.
Right. And
Amazing.
oftentimes, like you said in the beginning of this segment, people misunderstand the law of attraction and think that it just has to do with just thinking only. But there's things that have to be done, and things that have to line up as far as uh, your course of action and your emotion and
Right,
everything
right.
else. Yes,
And
right.
you have to have the desire. You have
Desire,
you have to take action,
take
and
action.
have expectation that you're going to get it. You've got to, as Neville says, you have to focus your energy, focus your attention on the feeling of the goal achieved, not on the goal,
Right.
but on the feeling
Feeling
of the goal achieved.
of it being fulfilled already.
And
Right.
the one step that is left out of most of the stories is you've got to pay attention, because
Yes.
things will start to happen, just like your story of, somebody who knows somebody who can help you.
Right.
You've got to pay attention when the signs come, because they may be really subtle, things
Right.
that you don't even notice. They go, "Oh, that's the answer.
Right.
That's This person just said exactly what I was looking for."
Right.
And
Yeah.
so you can
I
continue that conversation.
I can give an example in that particular subject that you just said. I said to myself I wanted my YouTube platform to grow, and
That's a
so
worthy goal.
yeah. So to fast forward a bit, I saw the World Kings where they had some information up that said if anybody needs growth or wants to collaborate in some way, if you have some uplifting material, email it to us. So if I wouldn't have taken action to do that and thinking, okay, I already set the intention for my YouTube to grow, it's just going to grow. But that one particular day, I saw that information, and that was probably, almost close to a year ago. And now I took action on that, and now I'm on their platform, and I have this new show on
Yeah,
their platform now.
yeah, that's a perfect example.
Right,
And part of that example has to do with another law, and that's called the law of gender and gestation.
right.
Everything takes time. It doesn't it
Yes.
it may not take much time, but sometimes it could take years
Years.
before
Exactly.
before it actually happens. You need to pay attention. Even if it's been a long time, don't give up on it,
Right,
because you've put the energy out, you've put that energy out into the universe, and it
right,
will it it's just like if you want to have corn on the cob, and all you've got is one seed of corn, one
right,
kernel of corn, stick it in the ground. Don't expect corn on the cob for dinner the next night.
right.
It ain't gonna happen.
And don't keep digging it up looking
Oh,
to see if it's growing.
you have to nurture it, water it, fertilize it, weed it. You have to take care of that plant, and everything else being equal, the plant knows how to grow. The plant
Right,
knows how to reproduce and make corn cobs, and in its time, you will have corn cobs,
right.
but you have to be patient, and you have to be persistent.
And it's not a coincidence that you're referencing corn, because I just uh, took out some weeds in the garden area from last year, and my wife asked me, "Do you want corn this year?" This was just a couple of days ago, and I said, "Yes, I want some corn."
Yeah, well, go get some seeds, get some corn kernels, and plant them out there.
Yeah, so I rototilled the dirt, and then put some manure down, and I'm waiting for her to plant. I said, I did all the hard part, so it's your turn.
Yeah,
Put
and the other rule is, if you want corn, you've got to plant corn.
right,
Yeah, if you
right,
want corn, don't plant cabbage seeds,
right,
because you're not going to get corn from a cabbage seed.
right,
And so there is that, the law of sowing and reaping. When you sow, when you put the seed in the ground, it takes time, and you get just what you put in the ground.
right, exactly.
And that's a probably an important lesson in growth. I see we're just about out of time here, so
Right. Thank you
we
very
probably
much.
we probably should start to wrap it up.
Yes,
We
sir.
didn't get very far along on this topic, did we?
No, we got plenty. And you know what? We want to leave our audience and me wanting more,
A little bit of
because
a
that way I
cliffhanger.
stay enthused about talking to you every time, which I can't see how anything else could happen other than for me to be enthused and eagerly anticipating our segment. But yes, I mean, when it seems like that you haven't, it's more to know,
There's
than
there's always more.
always more to know. Then that's exactly. See, you have a gift to give a lot, but still more to come, and that's
Well,
what's going
yeah,
to
but
draw.
it's been a lot of years of studying, and studying a lot of things, because
Right,
I love to learn new things,
right,
and there's the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
right, right. But we know, I know more than I did. I learned something new today, a lot of new things today.
Oh,
So
good.
that's
Well,
that's beautiful. And
and that's the wonderful thing about having another day of life. It's more learning and more giving that you can do.
right. And I feel that the audience here, that they're going to appreciate it, or they already are, because when they watch this, it's now.
That's
So
right. Yep, yep.
yes, they
Pull
already
that,
are
pull
appreciating.
that future right into the present.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's right. That's right.
Thank you, sir. And I appreciate you very much. I appreciate your mind. I appreciate your presence, your energy. It's so contagious, uplifting, enlightening, just amazing.
Well,
And
thanks, Lou. It's a pleasure to be talking to you again.
thank you, sir.
And thanks for everybody who's on the show here tonight, today,
Yes,
morning, this afternoon, whenever they're playing it.
right.
Thank you.
You heard it on Enlightened, Empowered, Evolved. Good night, good day, good afternoon.